Okay, hi everyone. I was supposed to finish this last night, but I was like too tired and it was way too late, and everyone, especially my family, just came in the room and was like, go to bed. It's like really late. So this is part two of the going through all my sketchbooks. I've only got like 3 more to go, so I'll pretty much be done in like really quick time. So this is my junk book for 2020. This is supposed to be the sample page. You can see all the colours on one side. And I didn't like it, so I ended up painting over it and just filling it up with like a bunch of stars and all that stuff. I pretty much use a Crawford and black paint, and I hate it. This is another reason why I hate acrylic paint. If I used Stuart Simple, this wouldn't have happened. So yeah, and I used a pink Posca pen because I like the colour, but I don't really like how the paint came out because again, more acrylic red paint that just did not work the way I wanted it to. Is this even pointing? Okay, so I started doing a title for this book, which was Jungkook here. First time I tried to do graffiti, I think I was inspired by Jazza when he did a graffiti page. So I pretty much went online, looked at the title, and did my own version of Jungkook. I tried doing like a brick background, but the samples of the markers from the other page that I painted over bled through, so it's kind of ruined the background a bit, made it muddy, which is why I made it the Jungkook. Here I was pretty much inspired by Steven Universe, so Spinel and Spinelli, both their sides, like other faces, like connected and everything. That was supposed to be Katra. It was inspired by Pinterest. I keep saying Instagram. It's a Pinterest image that I got inspiration from. This is Steven. I made his hair blue, and the picture looked a bit too white, so I did a black background, but then the hair kind of blends in with the background, so I need a white marker just to make it pop. Did garnet in the bottom, along with ruby and sapphire, and a little dude on the bottom that I couldn't be bothered to finish. Since I bled through, I kind of left that page. This one, I did it at work, and I was pretty happy with how I did it, but it's not until now that I'm looking at it that it feels very stiff, and it wasn't very artistic, like the only way I could describe it. I wasn't really happy with how it came out, and I felt like if this is what the art book's going to go in, like the direction, I don't like it. Like, I'm not having it. So then I went mental. I started using watercolor pens, and I copied of, what's her name again? Koi Mori. It's like a watercolor artist on Pinterest and Instagram and Twitter, and her stuff is like really amazing. So I pretty much took inspiration and tried to do ideas that I liked, like decapitation, where the heads are floating off with like thorns and everything, and being it inside a shape, or having like lots of shapes like that with like 2 shapes and everything. I practiced getting all my materials and started doing like an illustration just to see what they're all like. So here I have my Copic markers along with my SMYK markers that I showed before, my Pro marker, a watercolor, and this just to see how everything would look with all my reds. And I really liked how it came out. I drew a picture here, and this was supposed to be like a monochromatic study to see if I can make a character look a certain way in just black and white. And I'm really happy with how she turned out. I didn't finish these ones because I wasn't really sure what to do in the space, so it was just a random doodle just to fill negative space. I tried really hard here with this whole mask thing. It was based on a Pinterest picture where it's like split in 3. So you have a mask with like a woman's face, and this bit was supposed to be like food, like Chinese food and everything, with smoke coming out of it. I pretty much split the face, and I was really happy with how the watercolor like muddied right here. It didn't have the effect that I wanted it to. This was based off bleach. I was practicing certain hairstyles, and I was actually really happy with this came out. Again, I was practicing with black and white because I was like, once I get it like this, because my colour markers for any other colour, like orange, pink, green, it's either too saturated or very dark, like practically black, and it's like really spotty. So I got to the point where some of the markers don't work in harmony. Hence why I was using black and white, because like that was the only ones that could actually work and have a colour that I wanted it to be. Character designs, it was pretty much like an idea that was going to do for me comic. The marker bled here, and I got really upset because I was like, seriously, but whatever, things happen. And I really like this texture. I didn't finish it because I got tired after doing the first one, but this was like the steps of what it's supposed to look like. So it's supposed to be like a spiderweb effect. There is a picture on Pinterest that I took this from, but I was just really happy with how it turned out, and this texture, it's just so satisfying to see. This one, first time using Posca pens, I was really happy with how this turned out. It's supposed to be a character who didn't have a face with a lot of masks, and it came out the way I wanted it to. Practicing with faces at the bottom. Here I did a study for an AP class, you know, of like black and white grayscale collages where you like put lots of like images on top of each of them, and it's supposed to be like in grayscale, and it's supposed to be like realistic eye with an underdeveloped eye and everything. Took inspiration from an idea, but I couldn't be bothered to finish it. I was tired at that point. I practiced watercolor without using any line art, like, you know, pencil. So I pretty much did it in pencil, went over it in watercolor. It came out horrible, and I didn't like it, because when I first started watercolor, I couldn't not use pencil because the pencil marks came out. I didn't know what I was doing. So I kind of needed a pen, which was a stabilizer pen in grey, and I was able to do my line art, and I was able to just colour between the lines, so it was able to come out much better than the original. So if anyone's like me and they feel like they need strong line art but they don't have enough pens to do it, I think just getting a stabilizer pen, because it's water soluble, where it's not waterproof, but the more you work on it, the more the pen actually goes away, so it's like a much better pencil. So it's like clean the lines, you get to erase this crappy sketchy pencil sketch, and then you get to fix it up, and then like the grey, the more you build on top of it, like disappears. So yeah. Then I did this idea of getting stabilizer pens that were in red, orange, green, yellow, or blue, and I just coloured all the colours in the watercolours that match with the pens, and I was really happy with the like the rainbow effects that I got. Except the yellow, you can't quite see that one, but yeah. This was an idea I redrew from Sailorini that I drew back on DeviantArt. This was the outfit I wanted to create, and I struggled with it when I first started it, so I redid it. And again, I had a Posca pen that started running out, and I wasn't really happy with it running out, so I thought I'll just make it the I make a part of the image where it looks like I did this scratchy effect on purpose, but that was mostly because my pen was running out. Practice spaces with Posca, I'm really happy with how they turned out. Did crystals again, just like the other page with the people here, but with crystals instead in different colours. This one didn't turn out the way I wanted to, so I had to go over a face again, and you can see little spots in it, but other than that, I really like the effect and like what this looks like. This was me getting ideas for a sketchbook idea. You know when you open a sketchbook and like there's aesthetics that people on sketchbook tours do? So I was just watching a bunch of sketchbook tours and decided to write down everything that kept popping up, like patterns, you know, like just seeing how they did it. So I've noticed you had a blocked character, then you had a page that was full of people but only the background was coloured, or you have a full page of like an illustration, and you have coloured line art, you know, like just picking up a bunch of things. And yeah, I love this idea of the rainbow here. I freaking love how she turned out. She was like my favourite. So it was going in red and then pink. And what's funny is that the stabilizer pens were doing most of the work other than watercolours. Like, yeah, like some of the watercolours were the colour, but if like me, you're kind of worried that it doesn't become a like gradient from like yellow to green to blue, and it just looks terrible. This worked really well, and everything just blended together because the pens was doing most of the work and just started blending, so it was great. Pattern line art, I really loved how this one turned out, and the marker line art was basically another thing that I loved. So yeah. This page wasn't great, it was pretty messy, but it is a junk book, so I get that. And at this point, I kind of started figuring out a rhythm of how to fill the pages. You know how people's always irritated with bleed through? So I thought, hey, what would be great to have a marker on one page and then having Posca on the other? Because Posca can go on top, and even though there's bleed through, it doesn't affect like the actual images itself. So you can have Posca with marker, and then you could always have marker with like watercolor, or have like Posca and watercolor on one side and then do it again. So at least that way it's like some pages looked clean. I loved these two, like from a hexagon like rainbow effect with the poses. I was actually really happy with how that turned out. I'd love to do an illustration, but I copied the poses off Pinterest again, so it wasn't really like inspirational. This is also something I've noticed in sketchbook tours, is when you've like drawn something but you stick a little piece of paper on top, because it turns out when I colored it in line art it looked terrible, so I kind of redrew the background again. Another one is this. I used masking tape for the first time in my life. It didn't work out well because I didn't have one of these. It's actually specifically made for masking tape, and it's also got this side too, so like a really hard edge bit, so I can now dot in masking tape. And I think I've also bought myself one of these. So these is like a tool to control masking tape as well. Actually not masking tape, masking fluid. I'm really terrible at it. And I did a comic strip. The comic looked amazing during the pencil part. It looked even more amazing during the line art, but when I coloured it in, I went out so horrible and I wanted to cry. And yeah, but that's the point. It's like happy accidents, you know. This page I didn't like. It was too bare. Like there was just too many blocks, and I really hate this. I prefer a page being filled. Here I started doing like a study, but as you can see by the watercolors here, they didn't look right. How can I did tell you at the back somewhere. It doesn't tell you. Right, basically, when I bought this book, it said multimedia, so it was great for watercolor, etc. Turns out that's not the case. Some of the watercolors just did not lay right. It looks like nail varnish on a paper, so I tried the best I could. This I took inspiration from comics like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel, and other stuff like that. And I didn't finish this one because at that point it wasn't an original image. So I was thinking, why should I bother going in detail? Like the face is done, I'll just leave it. I was happy with how this one turned out and this one. I tried to get the same like aesthetic style traditionally as I do digitally. Didn't quite work out. This was a post study. Actually, I think it's really fun doing post studies in pencil and then coloring it in with marker, because drawing like a doll or mannequin for anatomy practice is great and all, except when it comes to lighting or how the final stuff is, because like I can draw people, that's fine, but adding hair, clothes, lighting, that's a bit more difficult. So I thought I need to start adding lighting to my poses just to make it more easier. I did more poses here. This was the only Posca pens I had, which was not great colours. I think if I could go over these, I'll probably change it. So this was just me trying to like block in certain shapes to make it easier for me to like figure out how to do anatomy and all that. And I did more post studies. I used a green pencil. Wasn't really happy with the green pencil because it didn't look as soft as this one. So pink pencil with grey is just much more nicer. And I used a bunch of Spider-Man references online because that helped a lot. This one I didn't get around to finishing. I just left it as it was. I took inspiration from another Pinterest where two people were reaching out, and I was like, oh, wouldn't that be good as a bisexual comic where two people come together and it makes the bi flags, which is like pink, purple, and blue. And I was like, oh, that would be great. And when you see the hands, you don't know what gender they are either, so you don't really know who they are. You just know that they're bisexual. This was a Meet the Artist. It was supposed to be a cartoony, sharp art style versus a realistic one. And I also inverted the colours. I really like how this one turned out, especially the like colours I had at the time. I didn't have any bright neon colours, so this was like the best I could do. I called this yellow because I had a plan for this, but again, with acrylic paints being what they are, it looks very horribly textured, as you can see, and it feels disgusting, so I didn't really want to try with that. This was me experimenting with Copics for the first time. I just bought Copics, and I was like, oh my god, I need to use these. So this was actually the first page that I started off with. I was using water, so I got like a bunch of colours and just experimented, and it came out so well that I was like, I'm going to make some illustrations, which is how this happened, and it did not turn out well at all. I wanted to cry because I was like, why does that not look like this? I did this first, it looks great when I did this. So I think the only reason I can explain is that I had burnout and I was just tired, so nothing was coming out great. The only picture I like was this one. Like, that is the only one that I actually really like. I practiced some more with markers. I was really happy. I took inspiration from an artist online called someone Alexin, like a really good watercolor artist. I completely forgot. But the only technique I liked when it comes to watercolor was this one, and that was using nail varnish remover. And yeah, it actually looked really nice along with whiteout, and it looks really pretty. So if I ever want to do that technique again, I know what to do. Draw October, I had a plan for Draw October, so I kind of like wrote it down in here, and this was my plans and everything I've ever like done in Draw October. I was like really happy with how it turned out because I had so many ideas, and I was so inspired for Draw October because like within October I had like a controversy with the guy who did it, forgot his name. And at that point, it was like, okay, no one's doing Inktober, we're all doing our own version. That's how other Tobers started being created. So I was doing Drawtober, and I was like very inspired to do a ton of ideas. Here's the initial concepts I had for my Drawtober. It's on my Instagram. So I literally have like all the images all together of like all the prompts that I was doing. And the prompt was carving, so I wanted to do like a pumpkin house, and I had so many ideas. This was the first one I was going to do, but I ended up going with this one instead, and the final image looks really, really good. I was like really proud of it. Next one was Wicked Apocrypha. I wanted to have a saleswoman showing her wares and was like gesturing them and going, here's everything I have, you know. So it was the bottom one here that I chose for the final illustration, but I had so many other ideas. I practiced with pencils. I was getting really into colouring pencils, but I don't have any normal colouring pencils. I just have watercolour. So some watercolours don't quite blend the way some pencils are supposed to, you know, blend and everything. But yeah, I was really happy with how this turned out. It was me trying to study anatomy. And then I did it again with this page. I was inspired by, I think it's Roxas Art. So a person on Instagram called Roxas Art, and they do these little spirals like with colours and everything. I don't much prefer that watercolour, but I do prefer the pencil look, and when they do the pencils it just looks gorgeous, and I just went mental, and I was like so happy with how this page turned out. It's like, yeah. And then I started experimenting with Copics again. Turns out the pen I had wasn't great, like blending wise, and it wasn't looking the way I wanted it to. So I kind of redid it again with marker, and I did pen on top just to make it look like this. More marker work, and I did a comic of like a girl like reacting to like an eye, and she just started freaking out, and the eye like squints as if it's laughing, and she's just shaking in figure. It was my first mini comic, and that was like the first idea I thought of doing. I practiced some backgrounds. I need to do more of these because I actually find them fun, like when they turn out right, of course. But yeah, I actually really didn't mind these. It's like I avoid doing backgrounds, but it's like once you do them, you're thinking, why did I make it so difficult for myself? I should have done backgrounds from day one. Another prompt for Midnight Feast, and this was the initial ideas I did for it. I'm not sure if you guys can see this, but there, the top one, that was the first one I drew, and I really, really like how like her face looks. I try to recreate that look all the time, so I kind of redrew it like 4 times here because I loved her just eating stuff, and it turns out the feast was just lots of sweets and food and potatoes and Halloween-esque food. So what she was eating was spaghetti bolognese, you know, instead of spaghetti bolognese. Okay, on other sketchbook tours, I've noticed this where they have a cute dark illustration on one page, but they have a little block page there, and it's some sort of bullshit quote. So this was me taking the piss out of that and going, some bullshit quote, because people seem to be into that shit for some reason. I don't hate it, I just thought it was funny. I tried really hard with using pencils here. I didn't really like this guy so much because he came out way too dark, but I liked how the other ones turned out, especially this one with the blue and this one with the green. Green and blue and yellow mixed so beautifully. But when it came to the dark skin colours, I realised that I couldn't quite think of a, what was it, like a complementary colour to go with them. Because at least with these, I had yellow with blue, which is complementary, and I had green, blue, and yellow, which was also part of a triad. But with these ones, I kind of just slapped colours together. Here I did some dog studies because I do not know how to draw dogs. You should do a small comic, a sketchbook comic. Yes, I'm working on that. It's going to be CD series from the last one. I think once I do Mermaid, because as soon as this video is done, I'm going to do Mermaid. Like this, like actually me drawing stuff. Because at least that way I'll be sitting down and doing it. And then I'm going to be doing me art journal. So once that's done, I'm going to be focusing on the CD series. I'm about all the ideas I'm going to have. So yeah, I pretty much practiced dogs, and I was actually okay with how some of these turned out, but dogs are really hard to draw. So I did birds, and then I took this idea from Alexin from YouTube, who does watercolors. Her stuff is amazing. Oh, his person, I forgot. Yeah, whatever. But yeah, I really like the stuff, and so I kind of like put it down here just to remember. And I decided to go with the Grimm for folklore, because it turns out the church Grimm in the UK was like a thing that we have. So it was like a black dog that was actually, the folktale is said to be said to happen is that they never buried one man first in a new graveyard, because they wouldn't want to make that guy being the companion who takes new souls into the afterlife. The first person who's buried in a graveyard would have to be saddled with this job for the rest of their own life, and they did not want a person to like be stuck with that and being the first person buried. So they buried a dog, which was like the church Grimm, that was supposed to take you to the afterlife. It was supposed to be like the long-time companion, and I was like, oh, that's a cool folklore. So I kind of used that for the Jungkook prompt. Hold on 2 seconds. Yeah. That's a thin your glass. Really?
Need packaging just to stick on top of it.
Oh my god. Alright. Okay. Alright then. So then which was this one? Ancient Rituals. Okay, so this was like a witch prompt, and it was supposed to be for I hope to God that's actually transitioned. You just can hear us. But yeah, witch prompt, and so I had some ideas, but I wasn't really happy with any of them, and so I did like this little doodle at the bottom just for the sake of it, because I really had no idea what to do, and I was like, I need an idea. I hope that you guys can. There, this one right here, just this one was just like some person just, I don't know, swirling a cauldron, and I ended up going with that for the final illustration. Oh, this one was an idea I had, was basically getting a doll and then having a bunch of paper in front and just chopping the paper in two and having each three like images being like a flip-through, so you could like do a comic, or wait, not a comic, but like do an outfit type idea. So you could just like move it back and forth. You could change the t-shirt for a vest, put a skirt on, take the skirt off, like give her a hat, and it's like I had an idea to do like a little book version of it. It also comes out in the Egyptian teachings about Anubis, the dogs that take you to the underworld. Also in Maya, it's a black dog. Yeah, like that's what gets me when it comes to cultures, is that some of us have some like similarities, like they're not quite the same, but it's like we like some are like inspirations from others. So it's like if you get round to it, you could just take every single myth and law, and some of them could be like very similar. It's actually kind of cool when you think about it. Like that's why I love history. I love ancient history, especially not the Egyptian one, but I kind of love Greek mythology. That's what I know. A palette that was supposed to be doing an illustration from black all the way to light, but the color there that I thought was gonna be a light blue was instead like a greenish colour, and it was Payne's grey, or was it Deer's grey? It was one colours. It was a colour there, and it wasn't great, and it kind of messed up the palette. But again, it's a Jungkook, so that part I wasn't really upset about it. Another illustration was supposed to be drawn realistic. To me, that's the closest to realism I'm ever gonna get. It still looks cartoony, but I tried. Oh yeah, and I also took a break from doing October stuff because I was getting like sick. So then I came back to it, and when it came to Harvest Festival, for some reason in my mind I thought of Carnival. So I ended up doing like a merry-go-round, a carousel. It wasn't until I was finished the final illustration that I was like, a harvest festival is basically people in a farmer's market getting like pumpkins from like a little pumpkin patch, and that's it. So this carnival thing, that's a carnival, not a festival, so I did it wrong. But at that point I was like, oh, forget it, it's fine. This one I was practicing with vampire teeth because I just liked it, and I made a character inspired from it. I kind of love this hairstyle where it's like buns, but it's got like stuff sticking out of it, like nails. And I was like, I really, really love this character. She's so freaking cute and edgy. It was the first time I tried doing watercolor on this paper, and it didn't quite turn out the way I wanted some of them, but other than that, I tried the best I could. These two were actually original. I was actually happy with these because I just drew them and it actually turned out really great. I love this character here, especially with the hair. I love this one, and I love the colours. I used yellow ochre, burnt umber, and oh god, what was it? That was another one. I think I mixed it with another colour. I think it was like a pinkish or something. I think it was this pink mixed in with burnt umber, so I made like an in-between colour. Realism, you have to keep Leah in our find. Yeah, I need to practice like realism, because like I find it really cool, like how it looks all the time, especially with comics, like the comic style of like realistic. But yeah, it's just a work in progress. I also did this one based off the God, what was it? Based off Pinterest pose. Really happy with how I did it, but when I used the watercolor, it made it look like she was wearing a diaper, so I wasn't really happy with how it turned out there. That was a mistake. You know what, TikTok? When they get those little freaking tub things of paint and the thingy on, and then they just move it around and it creates like this whole aesthetic. That didn't happen to me. It mixed together and it muddied and it looked nasty. So I was really ticked off from TikTok. Yeah, and I think at this point it was just me just messing around with markers and all that stuff. So that's the end of Jungkook 2020. Since I filled it in so quickly, I ended up getting a second book and made another Jungkook 2020. This book was originally green and it was nasty. So I kind of took Stuart's sample and I just started like painting the front and the back, and I just went mental. And then I did a Posca thing on top of it, but it turns out the markers I had wasn't really Posca, they were knockoff Posca, so their paint was disgusting. So it wasn't until I got real Posca that I redid the book and it ended up coming like this, and it looks really pretty. I think I'm really inspired by Drawn with Waffles when she does book illustrations, like on the front. So because of that, I started doing it myself and I actually really enjoy it. But yeah, because it's a Jungkook, this was the actual, you know, Jungkook. So I did anatomy studies, and yeah, this is just me pretty much practicing a bunch of stuff. I even went into detail about skeleton bones. It wasn't until after I saw an artist online who's like, dude, you do not need to know the name of the hinge, the pivot joint, or the ellipse joint or anything. You do not need to know. You're not a medical student to be a doctor, for crying out loud. You're a fucking artist. It's like you don't need to know every single insignificant thing. And to me, it's like, again, as a hobbyist who's not taking this seriously, it's like, do I really need to waste my time learning about the fucking skeleton? Because not only that, but it's like you look at other animals that have different skeleton parts as well. So it's like at this point, it's like, nah, I might as well just not bother. This was supposed to be for February. You know, February is the month where you draw fairies. And I was actually really inspired to draw these, and I was really happy with how these turned out. These were the pictures that I did scan and ended up making a full illustration on Instagram. If you guys would like, you guys can just go check that out. I do need to put Instagram in my description. I keep forgetting about that. But yeah, it's like I did do these, and I'm really happy with how these turned out, especially the bottom one here. This was Spoiled Princess. I loved her hair and her ears, and this was just so cutely aesthetic. It's like a 90s look, and I really miss this art style. This was based on a prompt I was going to do. It was basically me getting popular colour palettes and making characters from these colour palettes. I didn't get around to doing it. This one, I really love how I just went mental with colouring, because again, it's like when you have a sketchbook, you're kind of scared to like use certain things in case it bleeds through. But with this one, I was like, frick it, I'm going to make it look nice. And I was actually really happy with how this turned out. This one, the picture, I kind of struggled, so I didn't end up doing it, but it's just there in the back of my mind. And it was basically a dark elf who had a rib cage, and she was like pulling the bones apart to get the heart on the inside. But it's really hard to find like a reference on Google of a rib cage being tilted a certain way. It's always the front way. So it's like front ways when I wanted it to be angled in a certain way. so it's really hard to find any good references. Here I was going for a simplistic look where I was just adding like this ponytail to like all of my characters. I was just really obsessed. Like I was just adding like ponytails like all over, but I really liked it. I was like, it's so cute, and I was going for this whole simplistic look, and it was actually working for me. I did this picture here. I actually have an illustration in another book over there that I'll show. I've actually like read it again just to show you guys what it looks like. I shouldn't have used orange for that one. I didn't like the colour, but I was really happy with how this looked. I did a bunch of characters here. I actually did that one as a scan from an illustration. It's on Pinterest. Not Pinterest, Instagram. Oh my god, I keep getting them confused. I love this character with big glasses and like little poofy sideburns. There's just something very cute about it. I love this picture in the corner. I love anything that has these kind of halos with the stars sticking out along with like little patterns. It's really a cute aesthetic. This was me doing my year prompts, like trying to draw every single prompt of the year. Maybe reference an animal rib cage. Yeah, I think that might work because I've saw that online with the goats. There's like a goat face and you can like tilt it anywhere. Okay. But yeah, like I'll definitely check into that. So I did a year prompt thing, so I just realized that when it comes to certain times of the year, when it comes to November, it's like Qvember and everything. When it's October, it's Inktober. When it's September, it's Sketchtember. You know, it's like, oh, May, it's Mermay, and Fear, it's February. So I was like, oh, so you have these like prompts for all these months. What about the rest of the months? Do all the months have like a year? Turns out no. There's no official prompts for any of the months, so yeah. I did a character palette challenge. Wasn't really happy with how these turned out because this paper wasn't great for pencil. It's like the pencil caught on the paper, so I couldn't do a perfect circle or anything like that. I did final illustrations of these three. I didn't do this one yet, but I did do these three. This one was what I wanted to do, and it says, I'm a girl, so I'm pink. It was basically every single girl's journey of feminism. How every girl always has pink, like the colour shoved down the throat. So when you're older, you hate the colour pink. But as a kid, and even as an adult, I'm thinking I really like the colour pink. I mean, my hair's dyed pink for crying out loud. But it's like, I like pink because I like the colour, not because of the messages or any of the problems it's been attached to. Because like every time I ask people, do you like the colour pink? Everyone's like, no. And I'm thinking, do you not like the colour pink the way I don't like yellow? Or do you hate the colour pink because of the whole misogynistic values attached to it? Or the fact that every woman who wears pink in media is a villain? You know, so it's like, is it sexist to hate pink? Is it not sexist to like pink? Is it like a point of like, you know, overcoming that prejudice by liking pink? Is it like empowering to like pink, or is it just another stereotype of women to like pink? And to me, it's like, it's a colour at the end of the day, but because there's so many values attached to one colour, that's the point of the whole image. And it's the fact that her face was like eroded away, and that's why I had green. It was a colour complementary first as well. So yeah, at that point I was like, I want to make an illustration that conveyed what I thought of the colour pink and what I think of it now. Drawing characters was just a bunch of ideas I wanted to do. To all the artists I've loved before, this was a video idea I was going to do, so I was going to draw every single artist that inspired me to actually draw like right now. So it was like Ayami the Devil or Soundface. She's disappeared from the internet for the rest of her life. I don't know where she is. Tina Chan Knighty, she was the first person I've ever watched who got me into like drawing and everything. Pompous Pep, they did a bunch of Danny Phantom fan art and they were amazing. Kwasi, currently still drawn. Angie, she was a furry artist, and so I was just heavily referencing her stuff. Yumi, she does Fisheye Place for the comic, and it's a really, really good comic. You should check it out. Ran, Poison Cage, they were great. Iona High, also really great. She did Rise of the Guardians fan art and Star Trek once. And yeah, there's just a ton of them. Like, so it's like all the artists who are digital and then all the artists who are traditional. So like a bunch of artists that I wanted to gush about. Free colour challenge, I did an illustration where I did like colour palettes to talk about the 20/70 10% rule ratio. So it's basically where when you're trying to colour a character and you don't know where the colours go, how to fix them. you use this 20, 70, 10% ratio. So it's like some has like a little bit, a lot, and then a tiny bit as the accent. So when you add it, it gets to the point where all these colours flow together, especially since purple and yellow are complementary colours and they both fight for attention. That's why you don't have like too much or one or the other. Like with Rapunzel, it got to the point where her hair was really yellow and you had a lot of hair, but she had a small purple dress, kind of things like that. I actually did do this picture. This one's also on Instagram. One layer challenge. I was going to do this in MS Paint where you have to draw things in one layer because come on, I've been doing that my whole life. Everyone's like, one layer challenge, it's so hard. Me using MS fucking Paint. Like, really? Really? Outfit challenge. I was basically going to take a bunch of outfits from the 90s, Lolita, punk, Japanese, and just make a complete like outfit. Didn't go through with it. This was going to be me reacting to tutorials to see if the tutorials actually worked for me. Or this one reacting to art derps. So it's like a bunch of art memes on Instagram and just reacting to them. Style challenge. Had a bunch of like ideas here of what art style I was going to do. YouTubers as characters. I was going to do Thomas Sanders as like a prince. It's like a Prince Charming like idea. That I was going to do Russ Ross as a like an anime protagonist. I was going to draw with Waffles and another guy who reminded me of drawing with Waffles by the way he had to set up at first and just have them two like collaborating. And I was going to do Jacksepticeye, but he's got to be evil because yeah. I love this page because I was basically doing hairstyles. I was just messing around with hairstyles because at that point I was thinking, you know what, the only hairstyle I do is always just ponytails or certain stuff. I need to expand my hairstyles. So I started looking at references online. I started drawing my own and I made some unique ones that I really like. So you got bubble one over here. You got this one, which is like a sheep. So it got to the point where I put like little sides there, like little bread rolls. I did a star-shaped one, which I was really happy with. And I did like this one where it's just sticking out. I did this one where it comes down to the sides. And yeah, I was just, I did a flower one at the bottom here. If you guys can see it. Took inspiration from Anya from Kill Kill. So yeah, I just made like a bunch of unique hairstyles. Oh, I even did animal created ones. I thought these were super cute. And so when you, as you can see, it was like inspired by a rabbit, a mouse, a deer, a sheep, and like a cat. And so you could see like the shapes. So it's like, so I basically use shapes to create like very cute hairstyles. So I was really happy with how this page spread out. So then I was thinking, I've done a bit too much of women's hairstyles. So I'm going to do men's hairstyles. I gotta say, I love any male character that has floofy hair. It is like the cutest. And so I did Shiro's hairstyle. I did like a bunch of them. I really love any characters that have like, you know, beads. Yeah, any character with beads, any characters that look like this or look like that, because I thought they look amazing and we need more characters that look like these. So I was just pretty much experimenting, and then I kept going again and I did Lupin because I really like Lupin. Lupin's my favorite character. And yeah, I was just really inspired. So I thought, oh, I'm going to take all these hairstyles and make characters out of them. So I did demons. So I did like this girl boss demon at the bottom here. I did this character who's supposed to be an angel, but she's like a morally grey, kind of half fallen angel. She's working for these, but she doesn't really care. Guy boss, like, basically. I loved this character and I love his pin suit and everything. I just loved all these characters that I created, except for these two. I didn't like how the hairs turned out, but other than that, I love this one. I love the pose. I love how she looks like really soft and floofy. It's just so cute. I was going to do a video called a no hands challenge where you draw a bunch of characters without their hands being shown. Because I can't draw hands, so I was like, this will be a good reference for people who's practiced drawing, who's going to draw without using hands, because it's like really difficult to do. So it's like hands in pockets, hands behind your back, hands sitting where it's still behind your back but you're sitting. Also hands behind your head, so you got them like raised up. Hands in front of you, so you know when you're like sitting cross-legged and your hands are in front. And again, hands that's again behind your back or on your hip. At least that way you're branching off and you're doing certain hands, but you don't really see it. You just see the fingers like peeking over the shape. Then I went on Pinterest and looked at a bunch more of hand tutorials and everything, and I actually saw like a bunch of ideas of like how to draw without using hands. Even crossing your hands, you can't see it. And I was like, this is actually really good and a very like fun idea. I did perspective, I did stretch and squash. I also did body shapes here. So this was me practicing, but then like the ink from the other page flowed through because I drew this character, which I was really happy with. But I didn't know what to draw here as well. I was going to do a video about art pet peeves, or things that people do online that gets on my freaking nerves. And that was mostly when people do random line art without any variation, so it's all the same lines, and it looks like really annoying. And then you also do people who started drawing, they're going way too into detail on the sketch, like they do the eye really, really fucking detailed. It's such a waste of time because they end up not doing it anyway because the line art and the whole thing after. But yeah, just a bunch of our pet peeves. Realistic versus cartoony. I was going to do a picture of getting an OC, making them really realistic, and then going backwards into like super cartoony. Free colour challenge, and I actually had ideas for what I was going to do there. I was going to do a one colour challenge, so it was like monochromatic, as well as a use all the colours. So it was going to be an illustration of a girl who's surrounded by the Painter's Sigh colour wheel. Outfit challenge, I basically did all these with a bunch of numbers. I had this app on my phone that had a number twister, so when it landed on a number, I would have to write them down and make an outfit inspired for what I drew again. So it was really fun. I was going to make fake iPod albums of Hatsune Miku, didn't get around to it. Inspired by an artist, I did not write her name down, I totally forgot about it. I did Asexual Prompts, and these are like a bunch of OCs that I made. Like, I've already created them for a Halloween video and also recreate them again from me Instagram. And I was just getting a bunch of OCs who are asexuals and just like creating them like all the time. So you have like anti-sexual, you have pan-romantic, you have like grey ace and everything. So you have all these different ones who's part of the ace community, you know. So I was just going into detail. This was a horror prompt. I was just going to draw a bunch of like horrifying things to get ready to it. Oh, this was my experimentation page when I was doing the Marvel New Warriors design. So you know the view I have on YouTube where I fix and redesign Marvel New Warriors. This was the ideas that I had for it, and it was really funny because like you had her who she would reach into her pocket space and she would like pull things out. But the pocket space she had, it was like filled with stuff that she puts in. So at one point she kind of pulled out like a sex toy, and the guy was like, "Why do you have that?" And she's like, "It was a hen do." You know, like a hen do when bridesmaids go out with the bride and everything. So then I did screen time, which I wanted to make his like head like an actual, you know, computer. I thought it would be really, really cool, especially if his computer screen had like emotions and kept changing and flickering. I did Snowflake. Wasn't really happy with the designs that I was coming up with. I was kind of stumped. Then I did Be Negative. I kind of thought of making him like Rouge, like a negative space that would take and steal powers like a vampire. Then you have Safe Space, who was the leader, and he could control like these little cubes. So they were like, you know, shields, and he could float on them and everything. So yeah, I did a tarot, like a fake tarot card in the bottom here. Didn't get around to like finishing it. I used pencil for the first time, and this paper was terrible when it came to like art supplies. It was just nasty. I want to do a bunch of fixing prompts, so I was going to fix the Has-Been Hotel colour palette. Has-Been Hotel's great. It's just the colour palette in the series because the background's red, but the characters are also red. So I got to the point where the characters were blending with the background. It's like, if you were going to do Has-Been Hotel again, the background should be like an off blue or green or like desaturated colours for the characters to pop, or grey, you know. So that was the only thing I was going to fix. Then fixing Marvel's Warriors, I take that off because I did it. Fixing Voltron, I was literally going to redo season 8 because I was so pissed off at what they did with Voltron. It was just nasty. I did like a bunch of expression memes. I did more ideas of compositions that I was going to do for Marvel New Warriors. Everyone will probably know what this one is. This was the final one that I actually chose, just flipped. I also did Snowflake riding on like a little snow ice thing, and she was just like sliding off it. I actually had the vampire like perched on a building like a gargoyle. So either way, I kind of ended up with these shots like for the composition. Hugh Vember, I was actually experimenting with like stuff for Hugh Vember, and it was like a prompt, so it was like bothersome, lemon, star, cherry, warmth, orange, and so it was like supposed to go into like a gradient. But yeah, 6-character challenge. I ended up not doing this because I didn't really like the characters. This I did when I was bored and didn't know what to do. This was part of a prompt that I did with a Facebook page. I ended up not finishing it. This was supposed to be her here, and the whole prompt was supposed to be her like surrounded by flowers, because the prompt was like plant. So she was like surrounded in a garden full of like cacti, Maleficent in the corner, looking fabulous. This was also based on the 6-character challenge. Someone gave me Godzilla. Yeah, like, you know, the new Godzilla. And I didn't know what to do. But when I drew this, doesn't he look cute? And this little character is supposed to be the one from Stranger Things, you know, 11. So she's like there, and he's just wagging like a puppy. And I was like, that is so adorable. I just never got around doing it. Then I also got this character from Ace Attorney. This was the pose I wanted, and I kind of redrew it. I was happy with how she turned out. Renna was also a prompt, along with that character from Animal Crossing. And then it was like, what, look, the hedgehog? I haven't heard of him before, but yeah. So then I tried doing the prompts again here. Didn't get ready to do them. I had the idea of doing a story called The Illuminati, and it was basically every single treasure hunter was part of a collaboration to find a treasure. So you have Lara Croft, then you have Nathan Drake, you have Indiana Jones, and you also had Benjamin Gates from National Treasure, and had all of them working against each other and then working together in the end to save the world from reasons. But I tried with Nathan, didn't work out well. And the thing is, when you look at Tomb Raider with her stories, how do you know that Tomb Raider's a good character? How do you know she's a good guy? Like, I was rewatching the movies and the games, I'm thinking, hold on. In Tomb Raider Legends, she just finds a bunch of mercenaries in, like, an archaeological thing. And what does she do? She starts shooting them. She doesn't know who those guys are. She just kills people because she doesn't like them. Like, what the fuck, Laura? I did a concept for a drawing game. I think once I figure out Blender, I might actually be able to do a dress-up game just to see if I can do it. More Hugo faces because I was practicing. It turns out I know people hate Hugo faces because they're not safe for work, but I feel like they have the most diverse faces ever. Oh, I'm running out of time. Anatomy poses, I didn't like them. More anatomy poses, wasn't really happy with them. This was the LGBT characters that I was talking about, you know, the Ace characters. So yeah, just practicing these. I was inspired by these 3 artists, who was Mia Rodriguez, Billie Eilish, and Melanie Martinez, because I thought all of them, they're not the same, they're all their own unique person, they're all different, but I felt like they were similar, so I wanted to make like a trio of all these girls like together, like all of them like, you know, drawn together and just like drawn all of them in detail, because, you know, this is actually my CD series. Yeah, like, okay, I'm gonna get into it. This is Melinda Halliwell. I wasn't really sure how I was gonna do a hairstyle because the way she looks for me is like, look at that. Got this freaking camera. There, straight hair. So that's what I wanted for her to look like. But I do kind of look like love this one. Focus, thank you. So this one with the curly hair. I wanted her to have like very wavy curly hair, but the straight hair works too, so I didn't know what to do. I had this one who was supposed to be like Angel from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and he's like a vampire and he's like really mean. And then you have this kid who was supposed to be the human, who's the sarcastic character, you know, like Styles or Xander. So yeah, I plan to get every single horror movie like Charmed, Buffy, Teen Wolf, and Supernatural, and just get every single Supernatural thing, just mixing it together and making this whole concept to think, imagine if Spike interacted with Dean Winchester, like that type of world. Have you looked for a team or group to join and create and grow? I think I need to draw first, because I do this thing where I see I'm going to do something and I end up not doing it. I end up forgetting about it because like life happens. I wanted to do 365 days later, didn't do it. I was supposed to stream Shawn Showdown on Twitch, didn't do it. So it's like, I'm just mostly in the planning stages of my CD series. But I kind of want to do a Yandere dev. I know no one likes Yandere dev, but I think his concept of going on YouTube and going through his progress to like talk about like a story and everything was actually really fun to like talk about. So it's like I want to show and create things like as I'm going. so that way people can see behind the scenes of like how I'm creating it. So at least that way it's still out. So even if I don't end up doing it and I end up like ignoring the project, at least I've got content and at least it's out there in some shape or form. And if I end up doing it, I'm not gonna spoil the whole thing. But yeah, I would love to like, you know, get a comic and everything. I think I'll probably just be terrified of like being in charge of people, and then they'll ask me and go, "Did you do the pages?" And I'm like, "No." Like I won't want to let anyone down, and so it's more like the whole I want to like get everything out there first, and then maybe get a team after, like once everything's already halfway done. So yeah. This is a character who was supposed to be psychic. She gets migraines because she's like prophesizes, you know, like Cordelia and Sam from the first Supernatural episode. So it turns out Art and Phoebe from Charmed. You have the psychic character who figures out the problems and then you go forward and do things. You have the popular kids. Turns out the popular kid and this kid are the same people. Yes. It turns out I actually had this idea before WandaVision came out. I'm not saying WandaVision stole it, but it turns out that this character, her mum, astral projected. So she looked glamorous, she was the popular kid, she was able to have a social life, while her other self was the one who did studies and did her homework and was like doing a ton of stuff. So she's doing like two things at the same time, like WandaVision, when Wanda's like trying to study the book in her astral projection, or Doctor Strange while she's doing that. So yeah. Okay, and then this was an idea I had, and it was basically the girl who lost her head and she had a very tragic story and she was like screwed over. So the title of this story arc is going to be called Blind Man's Bluff, I think, because it's a game where you used to like tie a ribbon around someone's head and you just like spin them in circles and that to find people. So she literally goes to a person and says, "Have you seen my head?" And she grabs it and she rips it off. And if it doesn't fit, she tosses it away and she tries to find it. So Melinda finds her head, goes towards this creepy headless thing walking towards her, and she reunites the head, and she's like, "Thank you," and then she just disappears into like bubbles and stuff. Like it's just, that's the first prompt. The whole plan is that it's gonna be like creepypastas too. So it's gonna be like a bunch of like creepypastas like made into a story. Vampire reincarnation, where there's a guy who's a villain. It's based on Spike or Stars no Kitsune, but he dies. But he's already a reincarnation at school, and people freak out when they see him like in the school and everything. So yeah, I haven't got a name from him yet. He just exists. What else? Oh, Spider-Man. He says New Yorkers don't realize how bad I have it. You have the heroes, which is Miss Marvel, Captain America, and Tony, Iron Man, etc. But then you have the group that Spider-Man's with, which is Deadpool and Daredevil and Elektra and Death Rider, who's a Bone, who's like on fire, and you have the Punisher, and these look like the biker gang who will literally stab you in the face if you look at them wrong. So Spider-Man's like, why does my team always get affiliated with these guys? And everyone's like, it's the Halloween party, and like Deadpool and Death Rider's like, you're one of us now. I thought it would be like a very funny comic because Spider-Man's always affiliated with them. I had that idea here, and I really like how this turned out. I really like dark silhouettes. I had that idea for like a little cutout, as you can see. So it was like a cutout there of like a guy thinking through it. And I always love cutout parts of like paper because I thought it's like great. I love how this turned out. This was my favourite image of the whole thing. And this was when I actually tried using markers in the sketchbook, but it bled through like a bitch and it was nasty. I actually really like how this turned out. It was a direct copy of a Pinterest image on Pinterest, and I was happy how it turned out and that it came out exactly how I thought it was, and it made me really upset because I'm thinking all this time I could have used this book for these type of illustrations because it turned out so great. So I'm kind of upset because of that. Some ideas that I had for future projects that I never got around to doing. I kind of like this effect, especially if it's like gouache or acrylic paint where they layer bricks on top of each other. I just love it. And then just me messing around with markers. And that's pretty much it for that Jungkook. And that's done. And here's the last one. Last but not least. And it's my watercolor book. And for this one, it was basically all my watercolor sketches. So this is what I drew back in 2019. It was my first taste of watercolors. Wasn't really happy at the time, but at least that way it was my first taste of what watercolors were about. I did some sketches, planning on like doing them, didn't get around to it. I copied of Kellogg's Loops, you know, the guy from YouTube who's like really into like watercolors. I copied of him, followed his tutorial. I was actually really happy with how this turned out, and this was the decisive factor of me getting really into watercolors because it turned out so well. Not the top ones, but like the bottom ones at the bottom look so amazing. So because of that, I was actually able to go, yeah, I might do this like officially. I tested the paper to see if this was perfect for watercolor because it's wrinkly. It wasn't that great. I decided which one was better. Was it pencil? Was it watercolor pencil? Or was it pen? Turns out the pen one actually looked really nice. Even though people online keep saying things like, oh yeah, just don't pen your stuff and then watercolor it. I was testing out watercolor pencils just to see how they worked. I was swatching all the watercolor stuff. Experimented with watercolor ideas. I want to do an MS Paint aesthetic and a flower aesthetic. Some ideas that I never got around to like painting. I tried this paint from a bamboo thing from the works, and the paper, wait, not the paper, the paint itself went on so disgusting. I hated it, and even the little ink thing that came with it was so hard to use. I hated it. This was basically scrap paper to like, you know, use paint just to see how it looks. This was me going through all my paint supplies. Thanks. So yeah, this was me basically using paints to see what the colours look like, and so I kind of had like all these colours going into it. I really like this effect, especially like using circles. It just has this whole cute aesthetic to it, and you're able to see all the colours compared, and you're able to like see which paints are like way better to use or not. Especially this one, because it turns out some greys and blacks are like more blue, while some are more warmth and more like reddish. And that's like a complete key difference when you're drawing something. This was the original palettes for, what was it? This. So for this one, these were the original colours, and they came out so terribly and I hated them. So I ended up like redoing a swatch and changing them as they were to make them like much more nicer. This was me experimenting with more watercolour stuff, doing even more watercolour swatches. And you know that shitty Posca pen knockoff I was talking about? Was that one. Like, I'm not sure if you guys can see that, but yeah. Can you see like how disgusting that is? It's just nasty. So this was why in the past I was screaming, I hate Posca! Just to realise what I was using wasn't Posca. And this is the picture I was talking about from the other one. I wonder if I can... Hold on, I'm just trying to find it. There it is. So that was the final one from this. I'm actually really happy with how this turned out, especially for a watercolour that had problems. I coloured her dress green and it looked nasty, so I kind of bought some Payne's grey and just went over it, and it looks way better being black than green. You got a watercolour. Thank you! I practice a lot. But yeah, it's like watercolour so satisfying. It really calms me down. I freaking love like doing watercolor stuff. It's just, yeah, it's my favourite. That's why I don't like acrylic. Acrylic's just nasty. So this was me doing watercolor techniques. I was just experimenting. Turns out using salt on top of like watercolor doesn't work the same way for me that does anyone else. Like here it looks fine, but in other illustrations it doesn't turn out right. Oh, okay, so I started using circles and started doing colour palettes to mix them all up, and it actually looked really good. And I was just using all my favourite colour palettes just to see which colours I liked. Experiment here didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. This came out muddy for some reason, and I do not know why. This one did because I went over it in grey, but for some reason these shapes, when I was trying to colour them out with watercolour, it was just not going out the way I wanted it to. I practiced watercolour here, and I was using flowers, and it turned out really well. These I was supposed to colour in, but I never got the time to do it. These were supposed to be actually colour palettes, like from these. So it wasn't supposed to be like official. Wait there, the music stopped, I didn't even realise. Yes, keep playing, thank you. Okay. So all the colour palettes like here were supposed to be in there to make it like look pretty and everything. So this was just me experimenting with watercolours and mixing it up. So I was like, since this paper's not good for illustrations, I might as well use it just to experiment. I was actually happy with yellow and blue. These colour so beautifully. I never even realized. I never used to like yellow and blue like together like this, but when you paired it, it looks so gorgeous. I was like, wow. Especially here, I was just experimenting with so many colors. This was my first what was I going to say? This was basically my first style again to go at watercolors again. I realized the reason why it was looking like this was because I was drowning the skin color with lots of like pigment and everything, so it ended up fringing. So I have figured out how to fix it, but other than that, I actually do like how she turned out. This was supposed to be Rini from Black Lady from like Sailor Moon. I ended up not doing her hair because at that point I was kind of terrified. I was like, I'm just gonna leave it. I used masking tape for this, but it turns out that the water buckled, so the masking tape wasn't laid flat on it properly, so it bled through, so it didn't have the effect that I wanted it to. This was an experiment for a illustration. I think I'll show you guys it since I'm not wherever it may be. I've put it somewhere and I've lost it. Oh, there it is. Found it. Okay. So this was inspired by an illustration that I did for this. This was a book I purposely bought for illustrations, and this was the final product. This paint isn't. This paper is not 100% fantastic with watercolor, but the way it turned out looked really, really great. I was actually terrified that the butterfly would turn out terrible because it was part of the face. But yeah, I was actually really happy with how it turned out. And this was like the mock-up to see how it would look. More practices with watercolors and all that stuff. I kept experimenting. Oh, I also did another Kellogg's Loops watercolor tutorial that he did. I actually did really well with it, and I was actually happy with how this turned out. Doing waves is really, really hard though. I think practice makes perfect, and you have to just do it over and over again and figure out how waves look. But other than that, I was actually really happy with how this turned out, except for the blowing the paint one way because I didn't have a straw or anything, so it wasn't working the way I wanted it to. It was just going everywhere but the direction. So yeah, more experimentation. There's an artist online called Apceline, and she has this, where she has this like little stencil thing, and she actually bought it from a person on an Etsy shop. But I kind of just traced her stencil from her videos and just cut it out myself, and so I was able to make my own little mini versions of watercolor mixes. So it's like red, green, and blue, along with like the cyan colors, which was like pink, blue, yellow, and black. But because it was a freeway, I couldn't add the black in. I need to start taping off. It looks really nice. This was part of a video of me having problems with certain other watercolors. You know that rant I had about the aquafine paper being terrible? This was going to be like a direct result of it, of me practicing techniques and them not working it the way I wanted to see a C. This is why I don't follow YouTubers, because some things just do not work for me. I never got around to doing it. UK Fine Liner Lad. This was the version I was talking about in the previous video when I was doing skin tones, and it actually works. And I was like, what the heck? Wow! But the only problem for me that I have personally is that it's not consistent. Like, if I wanted to get like this top skin tone, but I end up going a bit too grey, or I end up going a bit too orange, or heck, if one point it goes like green or something. That's the only problem. But he basically said if you have these three colours and keep mixing and mixing and mixing, you'll end up getting skin tones, which is amazing. And oh, here's the idea I had that I kind of put in fruition, which was basically the lass who's the different outfits to cut it out. There we go. So that was my idea, to like have a cut out Flik-through outfit, and then she's just a model in the background there. So I was able to do it, but I wasn't really happy with the final look. And this was me practicing with acrylic paint. Did not turn out the way I wanted to, but that was when it was working. I think it's because I bought that paint for like 2019, And when I try to use it again in 2021, it's just not working out the way I want it to. This was me using watercolor for the first time, hence why it looks disgusting. And then here again, which is why it looks muddy. And this was actually the only colours I had for watercolor, which was cerulean blue, permanent rose, and burnt umber. And that was literally it. That was all the colours that I had. Okay. And last but not least, pretty much the last book, and then that's pretty much it that I have. So you know my art journal that was supposed to be a bullet journal? This was what inspired it. So I was pretty much going through a bunch of fonts. And here's a bunch of ideas. I've actually uploaded all of this onto my Instagram, just in case anyone has any bullet journal stuff that they want to do. So I pretty much like had all of these as ideas for my little bullet journal. Pretty much what I used for this was a stabilizer pen, so it was like a pink and blue one, and that was the only colours I used. I started doing crystals. I might do a video on crystals again soon. I actually have some crystals, like amethyst, because they are fantastic. And might just do a whole video about me doing like my versions of crystals and how I do them. Practicing skulls, practicing animals and butterflies, did astrology. Had some ideas here for more bullet journals. Had an idea here for like a complete spread. I just love dark silhouettes. I just think they're so amazing. More ideas for bullet journals. Not a huge fan of these ones. I thought these were boring. I just did them because I like the idea on Pinterest for like bullet journals. Had idea for hairstyles and logs and stuff that I did. This is supposed to be added in my current bullet journal at the moment, just to add all my stuff in. Washi tape, all the washi tape I have. This might look confusing until you use the cutout. So it's him with a starry night, a girl in a dress, and more starry nights. Here, this picture didn't look that great. Line work ideas. I really like this little star at the bottom. It looks really cute. Also continued texture ideas for next time I do like a inked illustration. I took Alphonse's book from, what was it, Kindle? On my Kindle, and I was actually able to go through the whole process and experiment with my ink pen. So I pretty much used this and I was going mental. I was like, this is so satisfying. Like I could literally just fill thousands of pages with just this. It was so fun. Made sure I used Posca, didn't work out the way I wanted it to. I was going through all my dark colours just to see what it's like. As you can see, I have light colours here, which are like earthy colours, while these ones are pretty much more blue. I want to do a book of shadows. Again, I always start projects and I forget about them. I was going to do a book of shadows, but I forgot all about it. Leah Alexson. The one time I actually put like the freaking artist name, but yeah, this was what was inspired. These illustrations were supposed to be in here in the squares, but I didn't want to do that because I felt like I was going to ruin this page. But yeah, it was just me experimenting because I love how she does her illustrations, especially with animals. It's so cute. Practice with watercolor didn't turn out so well. This was my recent drawing, and yeah, I was actually really happy with how this turned out. I got to the point where I was actually improving with watercolor. Crystals that I was going to do, but I ended up not doing them. Practicing with a bunch of brushes, so I pretty much bought like a ton of brushes, and I was like, what would these look like? So I started getting one colour and just going over it just to see how the brushes look and if they were actually perfect for me to use. Did a bunch of faces just to experiment, and I started using Copic. I did these little stars at the bottom because I had an idea. And what else? Had an idea here. This was supposed to be for a black star, you know, that I'm Not Starfire. So I pretty much had an idea of what I was going to do there. These pictures I ended up not doing properly. I know this looks terrible. I had a reason for it. I had an idea. I did a work in progress on me paint side and it looked nice, but when I did it here, it looked terrible and I just do not like it at all. So yeah, I experimented with a bunch of watercolors again. Did the bigger stencil work for RGB and CMYK. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Do I have any more sketchbooks just in case? Oh, here's another one. Okay, so this was me using brush pens for the first time, and I wasn't really sure what I was doing because it was my first time doing like the crystals need a glow effect. I know, like I think I need to do more crystals because they're really satisfying to do. Like they're just really fun. But yeah, this was me doing ear watercolors for the first time. I wasn't really happy with it. I think I made the eyes too dark, but other than that, I liked it. Me experimenting with flowers and roses and everything. It actually turned out well, but other than that, I wasn't a huge fan of like the illustration. Practicing with colours. This one I was supposed to get all my paints and do like a cross bridge effect, but because of the graphite, I made the paper muddy, so I ended up not doing it. Random pages. Okay. Illustration from red, green, and blue silhouette. So it's like green, blue with reds, and I was like mixing the colours together. I was actually really happy with how this turned out. And then you had CNYK, which was just her bursting with colour, and like, I really loved how it turned out. But then I practiced with crystals again, and they were not going out the way I wanted it to. And yeah, that's pretty much it from that one. Because it's official watercolor paper, I'm pretty much leaving it for like final like illustrations just to see how it'll look. What else? Oh yeah. Okay, and then this is the last Jungkook from 20 to 21. It's not filled in all the way yet, but I'm pretty much getting there. And for this one, I used pencils, and I did a pencil version of Black Lady. As you can tell, Black Lady is my favourite character. I draw her whenever I can. For this one, I was using this as another, you know, like the previous Jungkook. It was just going to be like a study page book, just to experiment. So I was like putting all my ideas down. I did anatomy. I think I pretty much improved anatomy compared to the first one. As you can see, that the eyebrows, the eyes, and the face is actually more contained. But when it comes to turning the face sideways, I need to work on that more. It's on my to-do list. I did Kyrie. I had like ideas of what I was going to do for Kyrie from Kingdom Hearts. I did face studies, and I was like trying to do studies that I couldn't do, which was like awkward angles and looking up and everything, and head shapes. So yeah, this was just me like practicing faces and everything. Oh, I did a Kingdom Hearts comic. It was basically the idea of Riku getting stuff and saying Kyrie and Sora goofing off, and having Titus, I think, saying, why can't Sora take a hint, because Sora's like in love with Kyrie, or Kyrie's in love with Sora, etc. And you have Riku, who is responding to it and wasn't very happy with hearing that. Nominee, based on the song of I Didn't Know You Were a Sociopath. It's a really good song, and I pretty much was inspired to make it when Nominee from Kingdom Hearts is evil, because I really love that. You know, on Tumblr, when people have these AUs and they have characters where you respond to them and they do these little comic spreads when someone asks like a question. I wanted to do that with Nominee, like make it evil. Here's a comic spread where at the top you pretty much have Sora looking happy, then you have Nominee who erases his face. He goes mental, starts screaming, then he's in shock because like his whole memory is just went gone, and so he slumps, falls to his feet. You have Donald and Goofy going Sora, and you have Kyrie saying he's waiting for extraction, and like Xehanort says good work, and it's like welcome our 13th member, and he shows his hood, and it's Sora, the Keyblade wielder. And I was like, oh, I need to draw this when I can. I use RGB and CNYK links to mix colours. Also use Neil Micro Glitter to make them sparkle. Yeah, like I never realised how much you could use like Neil stuff to like in artwork. Like, oh, I wonder if no, it's somewhere. Oh no, it's right here. Wait there, I'll be 2 minutes. Oh, mentosimo play. Ignore the banging. Okay, so what I did by using Neil stuff when I was into my witch stuff and all that jazz, I basically got a lid from a spaghetti jar and everything. I got the lid, I painted black, and then I went over it in Posca in a white illustration, and I went over it with nail varnish, and this is what it looks like. So if anyone wants to use these for like jar stuff, for like herbs or witchy stuff, or even for moon water. So I pretty much made this just for that. But the thing is that I used moon water from Halloween when it was like a blue moon, which was very rare. And I was like, oh god, yes. But the thing is, I ended up not using any of the moon water. I just forgot all about it, and at that point it was kind of too late to use it. And for this illustration, it was Nominee saying, "What about me?" And Kyrie's like face back, and you have Nominee screaming, like, "I'm a person too," and everything. Then there's the hero's kiss. So you have Sora who kisses a Dream Eater. It turns into Riku. You have Sora who kisses a Chirafy, who turns into Kyrie, because Kyrie's outfit kind of looks like a Chirafy. You have Sora who kisses a puppet, turns into Shion. Sora kisses a nobody, and it turns into Roxas. But then it says in the end here, kisses Ansem, stabs Ansem. Ansem turns into Xemnas. Stabs him again, it turns into Xehanort. And at the end there's a Keyblade graveyard with like a little gravestone saying "Rip Xehanort," and I was like, that is so funny. I love that. Pentagram Wicker Jar. Yep. I was like really inspired to do it, and I was like really happy. And I used nail varnish just to gloss over it, just to set it. And the nail varnish was actually really glittery too. So I was like, oh, now it looks really pretty and aesthetic. Did stars here. I really like how this star turned out. I was inspired to do this page spread of like Nominee with stars and everything. And this page literally looks like something a 12-year-old did when she was getting into manga or something. It's very funny. I pretty much got some highlighters and made an illustration from it. This was inspired for the 365 Days Later that I ended up not doing. Well, I did do the illustration, but I didn't finish the book. More ideas for the book. I practiced the background here. I did some TikTok ideas because I was thinking, oh, wouldn't it be fun to do like a little compilation of TikTok videos? I don't have a TikTok. We're making a YouTube fake TikTok videos to like put it all together just to make people like click it and see, oh, look, it's a bunch of art stuff. I made some OCs based off a ship. I shipped Shadow the Hedgehog with Amy Rose from Sonic the Hedgehog like games and everything. I don't know, I think they're cute, and I've shipped them since I was a kid. So I've created these characters inspired. So it's basically the leather jacket punk girl with the cutesy pinky sock girl and everything. I just shipped them too. And it's funny because there's like a little shot here of like the character who's saving a damsel in distress. And it's like, oh my god, you're so cute. And the character's like, I'm already taken. So yeah, I'm going to put these in my CD series. So they're going to be in there with the Supernaturals. And I was thinking of making like a PI group. And the PI isn't for private investigator, it's for paranormal investigator, right? So you have these two who are pretty much part of the business. She's a secretary. This character does all the work. And that's when my main character meets up with them. So everything's sorted into groups. So you have the witches covered, you have the PI group, and then you also have like the demon side, etc. So there's like a bunch of groups that interlock together. I drew fishes because I wanted to. I had this idea based on the 365 Days Later. I did a comic layout just to see what comic layouts could work and just to experiment and what kind of speech bubbles there were. Oh, I did an idea from Shaolin Showdown of what would happen if Jack Spicer was a Shaolin Dragon of Metal. And I was like, that's a good idea. Of like Chase Young finding him and them two grabbing his shit like Shingon Wu. And you have Chase who's like, thinks Jack's interested, and Jack who's blushing because he's the enemy, but he's a hot enemy. And that's when Jack starts getting a slump, and that's when Chase tries to like lure like Jack Spicer into like the healing side. And then there's another story of what would happen if the box that Jack Spicer opened up in Shaolin Showdown wasn't Wuya, but was actually Dashi. And what Dashi was like neutral, so no one knew. So everyone's assumed that Dashi was evil. And Dashi's like, hey, I did this and that. I'm the inventor of Shingon Wu. I can do whatever the fuck I want. So yeah, at that point, I just wanted to see this because I like Jack Spicer. I want him to be redeemed, but Steven Universe has ruined redeemed characters. Because as soon as a character is redeemed, they're no longer interesting, right? So to me, I was thinking, why can't we have characters that are redeemed, but they're still not evil, but they're not good either? You know, like Deadpool or Red Hood from Batman. You know, like you have these characters, they're not good guys, but they're not bad guys, like anti-heroes. I think Jack Spicer would be neutral. who would lean more towards healing, but is also kind of Shaolin, like Shaolin. You keep setting my mind up with shows and comics I want to see. You should definitely see Shaolin Showdown. It's got fantastic animation. It's got great characters. Oh, it's so freaking good. Jack Spicer is best boy, and she is young. Oh, he's just amazing. But yeah, you should definitely watch Shaolin Showdown and Danny Phantom. Like honestly, I'm just going to watch my old like cartoons because like, you know, comfort cartoon. I did face shapes here, I did some Sailor Moon poses here, and I tried drawing Jack Spicer, but for some reason my art style always goes a bit funky when I try to draw things that I'm not used to drawing. I did a model study. I was really happy with these ones, but when I got me blue, it was way too dark, and I didn't realize until too late. I was like, shit, it's not cyan, it's like cerulean, which is really, 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 really dark. So you can't quite see the characters, but I was really happy with how these ones turned out. These were like really cool. Shaolin what? Oh, I'll type it in. Shaolin Showdown. It has to be Showdown, not Chronicles. Chronicles is utter shite. You know why it's terrible? Because Disney bought it. No one likes Disney right now because Disney takes things and they ruin things. So do not watch Chronicles at all. It does not exist to majority of the Shaolin Showdown fandom. I did some shoes. What I did first was use highlighter. So I pretty much highlighted it first and then I went over it in black pen. I did some clothes studies because I like clothes. Clothes are like really fun to draw. And do I have more? Yes, I do. This was based on the art journal that I just showed you. And this was me trying to experiment and do the layouts of what each and every page was going to do. So this was like all the page spreads. It was for Posca, for pencils, for all these mixed media. So it's just me just putting all my ideas down. Experimenting with colours because I wanted to do it on this paper first and then mess it up on... What was I going to say? I just went blank there. I'd rather mess it up on ship paper rather than fuck up on me good paper, you know, so I went and experiment. I really like this pattern. This pattern's so gorgeous. And this one, just pink and black, it just takes me back to 2000. It's so cute. And that's it. But given the fact it's my Jungkook, I'm just going to use that for experimentation. So that's why it's still for 21, because the year 2021 hasn't ended yet. And... pretty much my last sketchbook, and then I'm done. And that's pretty much it. Last sketchbook. It's not illustrated yet because this is our teaser. And I hate this. Like, I hate this feel. It's just... I'm not sure if you guys can see the texture on this. Yeah, can you see that texture? Like, my hands are just a slight bit sensitive. I think they're even more worse because of sanitizer, because of the lockdown and everything. So my hands used to be really soft, but right now they're starting to like react to certain things. So if you see my hands turning red at any point, it's because of this paper. Because this paper, when you feel it, it's not smooth. It's like it's just, I hate the texture. The texture's horrible. So it's great for like markers though. That's the only reason I like it. I tried doing watercolor, but watercolor wasn't, you know, compared to the other books, just saw how vibrant it looked, but in here it looks very muddy and very dark, and this paper does not like watercolor for some reason. And given the fact that I like watercolor, 365 days, technically I'm way behind, as you can see. I only went to day 7 and I didn't get any further because I could not be bothered. This was the illustration that was part of the other Jungkook. This was the idea I wanted to do. This was based on Gustav Klimt, and I really love how this turned out. Like, if I could make this into a print, I might. I am pretty much got a plan on taking lots of pictures and documenting all the stuff and posting them online. At least that way I still have them on hand. I can still see them whenever I want, like on Instagram and everything. But majority of the books that I have are pretty much going to storage. I'm not getting rid of them. I'm just making new space for my new sketchbooks. This was animals, that thing, you know, when you like do random splurges of watercolors and then you fill it in with like pictures. So I got Pikachu in the corner here because I was really happy with that. I got Mufasa over there. I got a cat. I got like a bunch of other animals, and I thought they were really cute. This one was part of the prompt. It was supposed to do rooftop buildings, so I pretty much took a picture of my own street, took a picture, and I used paint and Posca I was actually really happy with this illustration. I just hate the feel of this paper, it's disgusting. But other than that, I was really happy with how it came out, especially the blues and how all the colours is just one blue, because that was the colour of the street, so I was really happy with how it turned out. This prompt was supposed to be swatches, so I pretty much swatched all my favourite colours. Colour fruit inaccurately, so it's pretty much taking a fruit and colouring it wrong. So I made a banana green, I made an apple yellow, I made like oranges purple. You get the gist, but for some reason my Posca kind of messed up and made a little mark down there. This one was basically adding fish to a shawl. It was like part of the 365 book thing. And I was basically just adding fish, but I was like, if I'm gonna make an illustration, I'll just make it a girl who's like holding fish in her hand and a fish is like kissing her cheek, which is why her eyes shut. But again, with this paper, it kind of muddied up some things and it ended up destroying her hands there. I couldn't lift or fix any mistakes. This one was like draw a person you know. I cannot do realism, but that was the closest I could. So yeah, another one was like draw vegetables, couldn't be bothered at this point. One was like add details for a bird's feathers, and I had to redraw the bird. And since I'm not a fan of animals, it wasn't the fact that I didn't like what I was doing, it's the fact that I was getting bored, because it was vegetables, you know, it was a bird. It was boring, right? I wanted to do cute anime girls or anime boys or something. Like, if a bird was on a guy, I would be fine. Number 10, experiment with art supplies, like acrylics, markers, etc. Then practice faces. And again, it was just a list of stuff to do. Samples of putting colours next to each other to see what colours go with what. This one, I already did an illustration on this on Pinterest, so I've already finished that. That's pretty much already done. And yeah, I just kept missing days because I just wasn't inspired. I just didn't feel like doing them. Fill the page with loops. I did that. And again, it's just, what was the point, you know? So when you look at 365 days later of art prompts with stuff like this, you can't just do it. You're thinking, like really, really not inspired. And that was like do lights. And at that point, I just gave up. I was like, sorry, I'm not doing this anymore, because I was supposed to do videos too, like a daily vlog and everything. But at this point, I'm even exhausted looking at this paper. I'm tired just looking at it. I just can't deal with this prompt. It wasn't fun. So then I started doing faces. I copied off. She's changed her username on Twitter. But yeah, she used to do like Johnny Bravo, Jack Samurai ship fan art stuff. So I pretty much copied how she does faces, because she's like the perfect Cartoon Network style. So I kind of missed the Cartoon Network style when I had like the thick, bold lines, because that's what made it unique and everything. And so I did like Joker faces, I did like Johnny Bravo, I did Samurai Jack, I did Wuya at the bottom here, I even did Kevin and Raimundo, because I love their faces from Shan Shoden. I did Chase, but he looks awful there. And I never did the paper since, because every time I rub against this paper, or like I go like that and like rub stuff and keep touching it, my hands went red. So I have a reaction to this paper. I don't know what it is, but this book was just not for me. Okay, that's pretty much it. So that's all my sketchbooks. Reason why I did that was just get them all out of the way, out of sight, out of mind, so I can try my brand new sketchbooks. They're all still wrapped up. I can't wait to do it. And I'm pretty much going to do make an entire mess. Pretty much going to do an entire video that's going to be based off me like filling in me bullet journal. That's not supposed to be there. It's supposed to be in the back along with you. There we go. So yeah, it's just me going through this and just filling up my whole entire art journal and all that jazz and trying to fix it up. Love your aqua art and doing art. Oh, thank you. Which software do you use for that? I use Paintal Sai. I use the old version, but now I've kind of updated to Paintal Sai 2. And yes, I did pirate it because I don't believe in paying for programs. And I know people online are probably going to hate me for that, but at the end of the day, it's like, no. Because if I had to stop using Paintal Sai because of other people's ideals, it's like, dude, the program's got to be fine. Everyone's still using it. And if I was going to pay for a program, it would be Clip Studio. And that is the one I do plan on buying on. So it's like, instead of wasting money on Paintal Sai, that's kind of obsolete. I'd rather save money and pay for a program that everybody else is using that has more features, etc. Apparently Paint Tool side has animation. I didn't even know that. I was freaking out. But yeah, I do use Paint Tool side. That's what I use. So yeah, I pirate everything. I haven't paid for anything in my life. I did pay for Creative Cloud. I have a video about that on YouTube about how that went for me. So yeah. So yeah, in June though, I'm not doing this book yet because my next video after this is going to be Mermaid. So I'm pretty much going to get another book that looks like this. I'm going to open it up and I'm just going to do a bunch of Mermaid stuff. I'm going to be planning it. And then after I might do a digital version of it. And do like finished illustrations of Mermaid. Oh, I have two DeviantArt accounts. So one's got all my old stuff from 2015 and all my brand new recent stuff on another DeviantArt account. It's got to be in my bio. I'm going to drop all my links. They want too much for the program. Like they come with a course. Yeah. I know, because like you look at art programs online like Photoshop and Adobe and all that stuff like that, and you're thinking, I'm just an artist. There's no way I can pay for this consistently. At least with Clip Studio, once you pay for it, that's it. It's done and it updates all the time. So that's the only reason why I feel like if I'm always going to pay me money for a program, it would be Clip Studio. I have no idea how to use it, but I'll probably just pay for that one. But yeah. It's getting to the point now, it's like, you just want to make art stuff, and that's pretty much it. But if I could, I'd probably go back to MS Paint. MS Paint is amazing. I might make a video about that. I've already done it. I did a speed paint saying OG MS Paint was the boss, honestly. Like, if people don't like MS Paint, it's because they don't know how to use it. I was raised on it, so yeah. But yeah. That's pretty much all my sketchbooks, so I plan on starting new. I've already got some ideas for Mermaid, so I'll always get over that. Oh, before I finish and before I go away and then put me art links in my bio, because I keep saying, hey, check your Instagram. People's like, how? I don't know what your Instagram is. I'm like, oh yeah. Oops. But yeah, before I leave, there was something I wanted to mention because I thought this was funny. I basically have like a ton of pens everywhere, like a bunch of like cups all over my room just to put your pens in. And this was what I used to have before. It's not big enough to hold all of my pens. It's ridiculous and very tiny. So I pretty much went out and I bought this thing. And I was like, this will be great. I can use this. Until I realised it spins. Look at that spinning. So I was like, oh my god. So yeah, I was pretty much excited for that because I was like, it spins? So yeah, I'm going to be using that a lot now. I use Critter. Yes, Critter is actually really good. I don't use it for illustrations though, but for animation wise, it's amazing. Like, I'm going to be using that to death because, yeah, I think Critter is like really cool. And Blender, I just need to get Skillshare and figure out how to use Blender. But at that point, it's like, yeah, it's like there's so many things like I want to learn in so little time, but I'm excited, you know? So yeah, hope you guys like this video. This is pretty much the last one of all my sketchbook tours. That's pretty much the end of it. And after this, I'm going to be doing Mermaid. So I hope I see you guys in that video. Bye!